Hello, good evening, and welcome to Daily Politics, your go-to platform for everything politics, policy, and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you most kindly for joining us on the program tonight. Tonight on the program, we're revisiting the aftermath of the devastating Maiduguri floods, which has impacted businesses and, of course, inundated the state government vis-a-vis its ongoing humanitarian crisis. What is at stake going forward, given the devastating impact of the flooding over the communities within and outside the state capital? The Borno state government has reported donations exceeding the sum of 13 billion naira, though only 4.4 billion is currently available and handed over to the newly established Disaster Relief Disbursement Committee. According to the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, the state has begun cash disbursement for the first batch of flood-affected households, alongside food and cash support for others, allowing many to return to their homes. Well, to help us navigate and unpack some of these developments, we are joined via phone by Professor Usman Tar, who is Borno State Commissioner for Information and Internal Security. Prof, good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics. I would like to first of all start with a developing story from Borno State this morning, where we understand that there was a canoe accident that claimed the lives of 4 persons, which signposts this ever-present danger from the flooding that happened over a week ago. What can you tell us about the scale of the challenges that some people still have to navigate? Because the understanding is that the waters have receded, but that is not the case in some areas.
Hello, are you with me?
Yes, I don't know if you got the question, Prof.
Yes, I got the question, the challenges.
Yeah.
Where the water is receding, it has receded significantly in the moderately low land areas, but in deep lowland areas, the water is still yet to recede totally. I would say up to 70%, 80% of the water has receded. So these households whose houses are dry have returned back to their households. However, we still have quite a few families that are yet to return back home because their homes are wet up to now. So we are done with evacuation. We are done with the IDP management. Most of the IDPs have already exited the camps, with the exception of the few that are still in the camps. We have already moved into recovery mode, and the Borno State Disaster Relief Fund has received donations worth 7 billion naira, and the committee was established by His Excellency the Executive Governor of Borno State today, this morning, committee on disbursement of the fund to help households who are affected by the flood to reconstruct their homes. Prior to that, rapid assessment committees went around the city to assess over 40,000 homes for transfer of cash to those homes after the assessment. The assessment showed that houses, the level of destruction of the houses ranged from low level to moderate to severe destruction, including total destruction of some homes. So the cash support is dependent on the level of destruction. So we have moved fast into recovery mode. We're restoring urban amenities, including water systems, reconstruction of roads, and power lines. So we are doing very well.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know that. But Commissioner, just give us an understanding of the terms of reference for this committee, and why is the Borno State government creating what appears to be a duplication, since you already have a ministry that deals with humanitarian activities? Why is this not a part of the ministry's scope?
Thank you very much. The committee is a 35-member committee comprising representatives from the state government, federal agencies, development partners, civil society organizations, traditional institutions, and religious leaders. The reason why a special purpose committee was established is because the disaster relief fund is a special fund that is not in the budget. It's a special fund, and the committee was necessary. The fund is not within the budget of any particular ministry, and the disbursement fund become necessary for transparency as well. The ministry is a ministry of the state government, but the committee comprises of representatives from EFCC, ICPC, from police, from armed forces, from development partners. So it's more robust and more independent of any particular ministry. They have a free hand to work. They have to establish their own criteria for eligibility of the fund disbursement. So basically, their terms of reference is to consider the submission from the rapid assessment committees of the households, to consider the needs of each household and to disburse fund as appropriate, and to also look into other areas of recovery for which the fund may be needed.
Yeah, so Prof, give us an idea of the scale of the work that this committee has to do, because we're talking about well over 1 million people displaced. What is the timeline here for this intervention to provide the much needed succor that some of these survivors and victims need?
Thank you very much. The scope of the committee's work include provision of cash support to the households that were affected by the flood. The rapid assessment itself is a 2-week process, and we are deep into the 2 weeks. Going forward, the committee will start disbursement immediately, but it will be well beyond the 2 weeks time frame given to the rapid assessment committees. So we are looking at anything up to the end of the year for disbursement and for rebuilding to be completed. The committee is also tasked to look into other areas of intervention, of recovery of urban amenities, of roads that were, totally wiped away by the flood, of public buildings and public facilities as well. But primarily, the job of the committee is to disburse funds and palliatives, food and non-food palliatives to those who are directly affected by the flood.
Let's talk about classification of the set of beneficiaries. You talk about households that have clearly been directly impacted by this, but in the coverage of our coverage of this particular disaster in Maiduguri, we've also seen a lot of businesses take a major, significant hit to their means of livelihood. Is there a plan to also help some of these small, medium businesses that have also been affected? Will they be a part of the coverage for this relief fund?
At the moment, the committee's primary focus is on those who are directly affected, primarily affected by the flood. Households, that is primarily the focus of the committee for now. There may be secondary beneficiaries, but that is up to the committee to look into that.
So for now, there is no plan to look into businesses that have been impacted by this flooding?
At the moment, the focus is on the households that were directly affected by the flood. This is the key focus for now. The committee does not wish to be diverted for now. It could be later.
Yeah, and Prof, there's been a lot of back and forth about how much was given, because in the early days of the flooding, we saw the governor visit some of these camps and give out some tokens to individuals that need to either put food in their bellies or get around to maintain their livelihoods. Some tokens, around 10,000 naira was given. Can you quantify the package that these beneficiaries are set to get? We're talking about billions and billions of naira that have already been received by the government. Give us an understanding of what, say for instance, per head, most likely households are going to get?
Well, each household, each victim, not household, for the cash palliative, initial cash palliative, each victim, adult victim, got 10,000 naira, 25 kilograms of rice, and a pack of spaghetti to start with. So a man and a woman, a husband and wife, they will both get the same. So cumulatively, that will be 50 kilograms of rice, 2 packs of spaghetti, and 20,000 naira to start with for a family, typical family.
And Prof, is that a one-off, or is this going to be a continuous process?
No. That's to keep them going for at least 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
The next level of palliative will be granted in due course.
Okay.
By the committee.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the scale of this intervention, there are those whose houses were not just overrun by the floodwaters, but were partially destroyed or significantly destroyed. Is the plan here to, in the assessment period, assess how much intervention each household needs? So it may vary from one individual to the other. What is the plan here?
Yes. Thank you very much. Is needs based. The assessment is needs based. Some houses, Maiduguri is an old city. Some houses were built almost 100 years ago. Some houses 50 years ago. The quality of the building also matters. We have engineers in the committee, building engineers, that are structural engineers and so on, that look into technical aspects of these buildings. Some buildings may be recommended for total demolition and rebuilding. Some buildings may be recommended for partial rebuilding. And don't forget that some buildings were also on the waterways. Those buildings, they are not qualified for disbursement. In fact, they have been earmarked for demolition. Any building that is on the waterway is for demolition, and those people, they are not entitled to cash for the building. They may apply for a new land elsewhere, but not on the waterways. So in summary, the support depends on the level of the destruction. And also engineering assessment of the destruction and how much may be required to rebuild or repair the home.
Right, and of course, as we've seen, Prof, the devastating pictures that started trickling out of Maiduguri in the early days of the flooding significantly covers both privately owned buildings and also government-owned buildings. So what about the scale of intervention towards whether it is the show of Borno's Palace that we also saw overrun with floodwaters, University of Maiduguri, the specialist hospital, a variety of... What is the plan here? Is this going to be the burden of the government outside of the target of this relief fund committee?
Well, the relevant agencies are working in collaboration. For example, BOSEMA, Borno State Emergency Management Agency, works very closely with NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency. Also, the Federal Fire Service works very closely with the Borno State Fire Service to clean up buildings. This morning, the Musa Usman Secretariat, that is state-owned, state government secretariat, we commence, the federal and the state fire services commence cleaning up. So by and large, agencies are using their own internal resources, but we also have interagency resources that we deploy to all the public and buildings. And also we render support to private buildings where they need, they call the hotlines and the relevant teams go to start the cleaning. So we do it case by case and in the interagency terms, and by and large, everyone is bringing their resources to bear in this cleanup operation.
One of those issues that came to life was the public health concerns about the possibility of an outbreak of diseases like cholera, for instance. And we also understand that NAFDAC has had to confiscate a significant amount of medical consumables that were reportedly damaged by the flooding. What sort of intervention is heading in the direction of public health services? Because we do know that it will significantly undermine the operations of tertiary hospitals, as well as primary healthcare facilities. So what is the plan here?
Well, let me start at the immediately after the flood. We set up 36 camps, and in each of these camps, the State Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health, we set up emergency healthcare facilities. Now that the camps have been exited, we have also triggered the existing primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare facilities. The University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital surrendered because it was submerged and it was been cleaning up that time. It surrendered its own doctors to go and provide support to the state government. I'm happy to report that the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital has since been cleaned up, and the doctors have returned back to continue with their work. So we, in terms of the drugs too, we have a newly established drug and medical consumable agency that has, prior to the flood, procured a large quantity of drugs, and that has come very handy as we are dealing with the disaster and the crisis that followed. So we are using the little resources we have. We are collaborating with our federal partners, and the State Ministry of Health under Professor Baba M. Ghana has actually collaborated very well with all the relevant agencies, including development partners, to bring resources to bear in the management of the crisis. With regards to the cholera that you are talking about, we received very few cases of cholera in 1 or 2 camps, and the standby health personnel actually isolated those cases. So it has not reached pandemic level, and they were well treated, and there was no cholera outbreak. But there was a report of a few cases of cholera, but there was no outbreak, and it has certainly not reached pandemic level.
Yeah, we understand that the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with UNICEF, have kicked off a vaccination campaign to address concerns around cholera and measles in Maiduguri. But in talking about the scale of the solution versus the scale of the problem, would you say, when it comes to resources, you are well equipped to deal with the fallout of this humanitarian crisis?
So, national entity, it will be foolhardy for us to say we are well resourced, well equipped. We can do better with additional support, and that is exactly what the Federal Ministry of Health did. And we are very grateful to Professor Pate for bringing the ministry's resources to bear in these flood times. But that said, as I said earlier, we have the state medical consumable agency that had procured a large quantity of drugs. But it's not only also about drugs, it's also about the capacity to deliver those drugs. And the state has, over the years, trained doctors and medical, paramedical staff that have all become handy in this crisis period. But I don't want to say we are well resourced. We are well equipped. We are doing well. Let me be modest about it.
Okay, then, Prof, if I have to be a lot more critical about the question, what could go wrong, looking at what is at stake, the scale, the gravity of the humanitarian situation that we're dealing with here?
What could go wrong? Well, what could go wrong if, for instance, the relevant stakeholders refuse to collaborate, which is not what is happening. We are collaborating well. If there is a crisis in communication or communication gaps, if there is a false reportage from the media, these are all scenarios that could change or derail the progress of the disaster recovery. Otherwise, I think the flood committee is doing well. All our partners are supporting us, and by and large, we are very grateful to all these partners. So we don't want to indulge in negative scenarios at the moment. We are quite poised to move ahead and recover from the disaster.
Now, Prof, the pledges have surpassed 13 billion naira. But we understand that you only have 4.4 billion naira for this committee to kickstart the work. What challenge are you dealing with in trying to get those donors to make good on their pledge?
There is no challenge. There is no challenge whatsoever. The 4 billion was yesterday. This morning is 7 billion naira. Actually, some of the pledges came in the form of checks that need time to mature. We have to put some of these, promissory notes and checks into to due diligence, and they have to do the due diligence. It's millions of nairas, some even billions. So, we have to allow the due process to take its course before these monies reach the fund. So there is no problem whatsoever. From 4 billion is 7 billion today. Tomorrow it could be higher.
So you're confident that everybody that promised victims some sort of relief fund would definitely make good, have definitely made good on their promises?
My judgment of the moral outpouring and the support and the genuineness of the support tells me that no one was here to deceive the Borno State government.
Okay, let's talk about then the disbursement, the utilization of these funds, because as you can imagine, when it comes to money, there's a lot of skepticism and disbelief with regards to what the government is doing. On social media, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's been a lot of criticism about the amount of sort of intervention that people are getting. A lot of people say it's quite meager compared to what the government is dealing with in terms of resources, that the resources far outweigh and outstrips the small token that people are getting. What is the intention of the government to open the book so that everything is actually out in the open and there's a lot of transparency with the disbursement of these funds?
Thank you very much. Please, I want to make distinction between two types of fund. The initial fund that the Borno State government gave is from its own resources. And that went around 10,000 and so on. The disaster relief fund itself, disbursement commences any minute from now. The disbursement committee was inaugurated today. That fund was not touched. It's the committee that is responsible for disbursement of that fund. So please don't mix the two. Disbursement will be a very serious matter for the reconstruction phase, for recovery phase. The committee comprises of representatives from EFCC, ICPC, from private sector, public sector, and so on. So here we are dealing with 35 persons of integrity that will sit down and disburse those funds on the basis of clearly stipulated criteria. So people should not rush into saying the fund is mega and so on and so forth.
The flood has receded in
tomorrow, pending assessment, consideration of the rapid assessment of homes, and very soon we'll move to assessment of other entities like businesses. So we are taking it one step at a time. We don't want to rush, and we are doing well.
Okay, and are we talking about only people who have been registered in the various camps that would be beneficiaries of this intervention? How big is the approach here to capture everyone involved?
It's not only for people who are based in the camps. When the committee goes to assess a home, it doesn't matter whether the beneficiary was at a camp or in a business center or at a filling station. It's the ownership of the home that matters. Who is the owner of this home? The owner will come. He will be photographed in front of the home. Whether he was based in a camp earlier or in a filling station, it doesn't matter. So disbursement is on the basis of home ownership and destruction of property, not whether they were in the camp or not. But for food and cash palliative, in the first instance, the distribution goes to those who were in the camp. But I learned that will have to be extended to those who decided to, take refuge in business premises, private homes, and even on bridges. So we are dealing with it case by case, and there is no assumption on discrimination. There is no discrimination whatsoever. But the fact is we have to start with those who are in the camp, who are documented already. Then the committee will move ahead. Homes are assessed not on the basis of camp residency, but on the basis of the nature of destruction.
And as you alluded to, when you were, classifying the various people that have been impacted by this, who are not necessarily in camps, I just wanted to get your thoughts on people who we see in business premises, as you pointed out, some of them on the major streets, perhaps lacking shelter and things like that. How much work does this committee have to do to reorganize the people, especially when it comes to disbursement? Because I know sometimes some of these disbursements happen cash in hand.
Well, the disbursement is not cash in hand. It's disbursement to bank accounts, accredited bank accounts of the house owners or their proxies. We have lawyers in our.
Prof, did you say proxies?
Yes, a homeowner who doesn't have a bank account can decide to say the money should be transferred to my son. That is a proxy.
Doesn't that open room for irregularities then?
Well, if a house owner doesn't have bank account, what do you do? The money has to be remitted by bank, not cash. The committee I learned doesn't remit money by cash at hand. It's by remittance through bank account. So ideally, we expect each household owner to have a bank account. And I'm sure most household owners have a bank account in today's Nigeria.
Okay. And just on a final note, to some of the survivors of this horrific incident who are eagerly anticipating this intervention that will help them get back on their feet, what word of comfort do you have for them?
Well, my advice for them is to exercise patience. We learned that some of them were too eager, some of them were even trying to go on protest. We advise them, and we have been advising them using local media here. And I want to use this opportunity to advise those who are in a hurry, in a haste, to collect their money and commence rebuilding. Rapid assessment, home assessment, technical assessment takes time. It's a due process matter, due diligence matter. We have to do engineering assessment, financial assessment, to determine exactly how much a home needs. It takes time. It's not a matter of a day or 2 days. In the first instance, the committee is given 2 weeks. This could be, the rapid assessment committee has 2 weeks. It could even go more. For the disbursement committee, it could take months before all houses are settled. It takes time. I want to advise fellow citizens to please exercise patience while we deal with this matter. I assure them on behalf of the Borno State government that each home that was affected by this flood, each home will inshallah get its fair share of the resources to rebuild and return back to their homes. Each homeowner, inshallah.
Okay. Prof, all the best implementing what promises to be the right kind of intervention that people need to pick up the pieces of their lives after what has been a devastating flooding incident in Maiduguri, unlike anything we've seen in time past. Thank you most kindly for joining the conversation, and we hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.
As soon as the committee gets down to implementing some of these intervention
Thank you so
policies.
much.
Thank you so much, Professor Usman
Bye-bye.
Tar, there, the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security of Borno State, giving us insight into the workings of the Relief Fund Committee that is set to intervene and bring succor as well as aid to those impacted by the flooding, which has devastated a significant part of the state capital and its environs. Coming up ahead on the program, we take a look at developments in Katsina State, the planned 37th anniversary celebration of the state, amidst what many say is an economic downturn that would probably be another dent to the finances of the state. More on that in just a moment after the break.